lot to ask for, isn't it? Sometimes for a broken vessel to be unleashed. Alright, there we go.
Unleash your kingdom's power, reaching the near and far. No force of hell can stop your beauty changing heart. You made us for much more than this. Awake the kingdom seated us, fill us with the strength and love of Christ. We are the church. We are the home on earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Fill my streets and land. Set your church on fire. Bring this nation now. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Waiting for this day, gathered in your name, calling down to you. Your glory like a fire, awakening desire, burn our hearts with truth. You're the reason. You're the reason we're here. You're the reason we're singing. Open up the heavens. We want to see you. Open up the floodgates, a mighty river flowing from your heart, filling every corner of praise. Your presence in this place, your glory on our face, looking to the sky. Descending like a cloud, you're standing with us now. Lord, unveil our eyes. You're the reason. You're the reason we're here. You're the reason we're singing. Open up the heavens, we want to see you. Open up the floodgates, a mighty river flowing from your heart, filling every part of our praise. You want to open up the heavens, amen? Open up the heavens, we want to see you. Open up the floodgates, a mighty river flowing from your heart, filling every part of our praise. Show us your glory. Show us your power. Show us your glory, Lord. Show us your glory. Show us your power. Show us your glory, Lord. Open up the heavens, we want to see you. Open up the floodgates, a mighty river flowing from your heart, filling every part of our praise. Yeah. Open up the heavens, we want to see you. Open up the floodgates, a mighty river flowing from your heart, filling every part of
to worship the Lord with our tithes and offerings. And as they come forward, I'm going to have Brother Anthony Rojas pray for us. And little Ellie, are you going to pray for us, Ellie? You want to pray?
Father God, thank you so much for just the time to come in and worship you, Lord. Lord, I pray just a blessing over this whole congregation today, Lord, as we give to you, Lord, as we give you our praise, as we give you our finances, as we give you our lives, Lord. Bless us all. In the name of Jesus, amen.
out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails and never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love
It's on and on.
is on and on and on and on it goes. For it overwhelms and satisfies my soul. And I never ever have to be afraid. There's one thing remains. One thing remains.
Draw me close to you. Never let me go. Lay it all down again to hear you say that I'm your friend. You are my desire. No one else will do. So nothing else could take your place. To feel the warmth of your embrace. Help me find a way. Bring me back to you. You're all I want.
You're all I want. Help me know you are
You're all I've ever the knowledge of God and not sacrifice. For the last several weeks, we've been taking a moment, taking some time on Sunday just to seek a heart of worship. And right now, what I'd like you to do is just, right where you are, just pray. Lord, give me a heart of worship. Just pray right where you are that God would grant you a heart of worship, that He renew that worship within you. If you've never
great is our God.
Name above.
Name above all names, so worthy of all praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. Name above all names, so worthy of all praise. My heart will sing, how great is our God. How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. All will see how great is our God.
Yes, He is great, church. He is great and mighty. I don't know that I feel I'm done singing about the greatness of our God. How about you? Do you know, sometimes if you reflect on the majesty and the greatness of God, you know, one of the benefits you get when you realize that He is King of Kings, that He is Lord of Lords, that He is that name above every name. When you realize that, when you start to take that to heart, you realize that those things that come against you in everyday life have to bow. They have to bow to that knee. We know and believe that He is powerful and almighty. And sometimes we know and believe it, and sometimes we say, Lord, I know and believe it, but help my unbelief. I have a feeling that some of us might be here today saying, Lord, help my unbelief. I believe in you. I know that you are King of Kings, but help me in those areas where I have maybe not trusted in you, or I have not believed you to the full extent that you are God Almighty. Today, church, we sing about the greatness of our God, and we can stand and declare, and truly, I want you to grab hold of the knowledge that He is above every situation and circumstance in your life. That those foes that you tremble at, they cower at the name of Jesus Christ. And He is your God. He is your Savior. He is your Redeemer. And what good thing would He withhold from you? If your baby's crying, don't you run to Him? If your baby's crying, don't you race to them and pick them up and love them with your whole heart? The Word of God says, if you being a human father do these good things, how much more will your Father in heaven do those things? Bow your hearts with me. Let's sing it out again. How great is our God. Oh Lord, you are great and mighty, holy and true, and we worship you. We exalt you above all of our problems in here. Lord, you are great and mighty. How great you are, God. How great.
How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. All will see how great is our God.
Let's talk about it age to age.
Age to age He stands, and time is in His hands. Beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The Godhead, three in one. Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? All will see how great
God. Sing with me, how great is our God. All will see how great is our God. How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. Let me just take a moment there. Father, I pray for every person in here. I pray that, Lord, they could see you in your majesty. Lord, they could see you in your power and might. And that, Father, those trials, those circumstances, Lord, that they are struggling with, that they would bow at your name and they would cower, Father, at your presence. And everyone said, amen, amen. Thank you all. Thank you, ladies. Pastor Sylvia, do you want to come up here and join me for a moment? Do you all remember last week, those of you who were here? Remember last week, Pastor Sylvia said it was okay if I interrupted her, didn't you? Did you see that? That was last week. Will you share this morning's announcements with us?
Good morning, how's everyone? I have to live with that every single day of my life. For the last 28 years. How did I do it? Anybody? Yeah.
Jesus.
I love you, honey. Yes, Jesus. I love you.
That's almost honoring, isn't it?
You guys have your bulletins? Pull your bulletins on out. Here on Wednesday mornings, we have prayer in the annex at 9 a.m. Everyone's welcome to come to that. In front of you, there's a communication card. If you need prayer or know someone who does, write that down and drop it in our little box back there on the table. And they pray over those on Wednesdays. Family nights is on Wednesday nights also at 7 p.m. Everybody is welcome to that. We have an adult Bible study, we have kids church, and we have youth going on at that time. So everybody's welcome to come to that. Celebrate Recovery is Friday nights at 6 p.m. Starts with dinner at 6 and then large group at 7. And November 17th will be our next BGMC. I hope everybody has a barrel. We're still trying to meet our goal of 5,000. We're almost there. And we want to give another big push for this month of November to try to meet our goal. We'll be having Girls Night Out November 19th at 6:30 p.m. It's going to be game night. So everybody bring their game face. We'll have some fun games that are going to be going on that day. And then we have men's breakfast on the 23rd, and then December 1st, we're going to be having baby dedications. People have been asking about dedications, so December 1st will be baby dedications in the morning service. So, and this service right here. And save the date for December 17th is going to be our ladies' Christmas party. Everybody say whoop, 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 because our men are allowed to come to this party this year. Us ladies are inviting our guys to come. I haven't got duties for the men yet, but they'll be doing something. Yeah. I know you guys know how to cook outside. Maybe we'll do some, the turkeys outside. What's it called? Fry a turkey or fry a something. But we'll get the guys involved with us too, so they can say yes. But we're gonna have a good time. We're still gonna have a gift exchange. There's gonna be a couple of MCs that are pretty funny, huh, honey?
Oh yeah.
And we're still gonna have somebody come in and give the word for our Christmas party. So that will be December 17th, and everybody's gonna be welcome to come to that.
Yes.
And also, I didn't want to forget this. We are starting our kids' Christmas program. If you want your kids involved in our program, or your grandkids, nieces and nephews, if you guys can bring them on Sundays and Wednesdays, we're going to be practicing with them starting today. And we need all the kids we can get.
She even asked me to be a kid again, so I'm going to be dressed up as a shepherd. Just kidding. Hey, if you haven't received one, the bulletins over there, the monthly calendars are over there as well. So please make sure you've got one of those. They keep you up to date. And then also, if you've never filled out a communication card, please do so. That just gives us your information, your name and number, and you can write down prayer requests as well, and you can either hand them to an usher, or there's a small box back there on the information table that you can slide them in. So if you have a prayer request or something, you can just fill those out. So, all right. Oh, hey, big announcement in December, right? December 15th. Woohoo! Should be a national holiday. Yeah, that's my birthday. I'm getting old, but Shane leads the way, don't you, brother? You go before me, don't you? It don't hurt to get older when you're good looking. At least that's what I heard, Kermit. That's what I heard. And men's breakfast coming up on November 23rd. We have a special speaker coming up for November 23rd. Raise your hand, Mr. Thane Hurst is going to be our speaker. He's going to present the word on November 23rd, and we're going to have some good food. Last month we had amazing biscuits and gravy and a good time of fellowship. So, well, y'all ready? Do I make you nervous when I stand up here? Never? Oh, okay. Darn. I need to be like that teacher you had in high school. Yeah, that wouldn't work. I can only call on people if I throw them candy bars, right? That's the only way you can call on somebody in church, is you call on them, you give them a candy bar. So, heard a true story recently about a preacher. Okay, it's not a true story. I can't tell a lie. I'm in church. A preacher paid a visit to a farmer and asked, if you had $200, would you give $100 to the Lord? If you had it, of course. If you had $200, would you give $100 to the Lord? Farmer says, sure would. If you had 2 cows, would you give 1 cow to the Lord? If you had one. Or if you had 2, would you give 1? Sure would. Yes, I would, Pastor. If you had 2 pigs, would you give one of them to the Lord? The farmer replied, now that's not fair, Pastor. You know I have 2 pigs. Okay, you all are. Now, one more time. That's not fair, Pastor. You know I have 2 pigs. You all are proving Pastor Sylvia right. She says I'm not funny.
Dan, you need money in your pocket.
I have money. That's the problem. Yeah. That was supposed to be funny, but somebody's told me if your jokes, if you need to tell people they're funny, probably weren't. So. All right. Mark 12:41 through 44. We're going to talk about the heart of worship today, and we're going to talk about it, including abundance or generosity. And whenever you hear that, you probably think of finances, right? And it does include that, right? It does include finances. It does include giving. But I hope today, after you leave, you're going to have a better understanding of how you might be able to give and a little bit more of what it means exactly. So Mark 12:41 through 44 is a very short passage. And it is a story, an account of Jesus. It's a historical account of Jesus where he is sitting across from the offering box. And I'm going to read to you from the Message Bible. It says, Jesus, sitting across from the offering box, was observing how the crowd tossed money in for the collection. Many of the rich were making large contributions. One poor widow came up and put in 2 small coins, measly 2 cents. Jesus called his disciples over, called them to him. Now, you know it had to be an important thing. There's hustle and bustle going on all around. I mean, picture, this is like Walmart almost during Black Friday. I mean, it's busy. There's lots of people all around, and there's this offering box over there. And this little lady, unnoticed by everyone else, sneaks over and drops 2 coins in, 2 meager coins. And Jesus, seeing opportunity to teach, pulls his disciples over and says, look, pay attention. He says, the truth is that this poor widow gave more to the collection than all the others put together. All the others gave what they'll never miss. She gave extravagantly. What she couldn't afford, she gave her all. Now think about the heart of worship that this demonstrates. Widows back then were not like the widows of today. Women were often marginalized, would maybe be a kind word. They were really left on their own. There wasn't a way for them to make a living if they didn't have a husband or a son to take care of them. And here was this widow woman who didn't have much way to make finances, and she doesn't just give a little, she gives all. What does that say about her? What does that say about her relationship, her heart toward God? I think you'll agree that it shares that she trusted him completely. Now, as I said, I'm talking about giving a little bit, and I have some older figures that come back to about probably 2018 and some into 2017. But it says tithers only make up 10 to 25% of any congregation. So, tithers, tithe comes from, I think it's a Greek or Latin word, and it means 1/10. And if you're counting down like cattle, head of cattle, it means the 10th one. So 1/10. That's the word tithe, that's where it comes from. So out of the people who give 10% or give in church, tithers, they only make up 10 to 25% of a congregation. Another figure, religious giving is down about 50% since 1990. 30 years, the church has plummeted 50% in how they give. On average, and this is from 2016, it says on average, Christians give 2.5% of their income to churches. 2.5%. The interesting thing about this is that during the Great Depression, how many of you know of the Great Depression? We're losing the great generation, aren't we? My mom and dad were of the Great Depression, and they tell stories of having no food. Mom talks about living right here in Hebron, and my grandma would take water and flour, and she would make kind of a pancake, kind of a tortilla out of it. And that was their meal. And you get this like a paste piece of bread. And so during that time, this depression time, people gave 3.3% of their income. Isn't that hard to believe? We've had crazy abundance. I mean, we've seen some dips since I've been alive. We've seen some dips for the last few years, but for the most part, most of us are doing fairly well. Hard to justify this giving nowadays when you think about that. Another interesting thing, and this is worth pointing out, I'll elaborate a little more about this in a moment. It says, of families that make $75,000, only 1% donate 1/10 of their income. Only 1%. And according to an article from Share Faith in 2015, it says people with a salary of less than $20,000 are 8 times more likely to give than someone who makes $75,000. So that's really, it speaks of a heart problem, doesn't it? Because you'd think that as you had more, you'd be able to give more, right? Isn't that what we think? We think, well, when I make more money, I'll be able to give more money. But the proof is in the pudding here. When people make more money, they don't give more to charity. They actually hold on to it more. In this same line, talking about people who make lots of money, Warren Buffett, some super rich guy, he said in an interview about his $26 billion gift to the Gates Foundation, he says, my gift has not changed my lifestyle one bit. I still go to the movies I want to go to and eat at the restaurants I want to dine at. But what about the person who gives a gift that requires that they can't go to movies or eat out? They're the true givers, the true heroes. And, that's partly true, but think about that little widow who gave it all, who had nothing. She wasn't going to a movie, she was giving up what she was going to eat completely. In comparison, that's something to think about and ponder. Really is a heart of worship issue, and it involves more than finances. We talked about the heart of worship, the song that we sang today. When the music fades, all is stripped away. I simply come longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. Coming back to the heart of worship, it's all about you, Jesus. Here at the church here, I believe that we have some values that I'm trying to equip all of us with, especially the leaders. But I really hope that we can grab hold of these values, and they are act. That we can be abundant of time and resources, that we can be considerate how we treat people, and that we can be teachable. These are things that, and I know I'm getting into a little bit of a, what do you want to say, just kind of a policy here, but I really hope that as a pastor and as a shepherd, I can help us to be a better group of people that are abundant in time and resources, and who are considerate. Because how many times have you been to church and found out somebody was backstabbing you in some way? I don't want us to be a church like that. I want us to be a church that loves each other. Amen? And most importantly, though, I think it's important for us to be teachable. So, abundance. Coming back to the heart of worship. Abundance of time is going to be the first thing that I'm going to talk about. Abundance of time. I was at church, and I've told this story frequently, so if you've heard it, turn to the person next to you and say, it's a good one. Okay. I was getting ready for church one night, and it was a Wednesday night, and I was super busy, and I was trying to get things done, and I received a phone call, and this man calls in asking for some food. He says, Pastor, do you have food there? And I said, I sure do. And he says, well, I sure need some. I'm living in a hotel here in town. I don't have any food. And I said, well, come on down and get it. And he says, well, I don't have a vehicle. Can someone come get me? And I'm thinking, I really don't have time. And I said, well, sir, if you can just make it here, we'll be happy to get you a box. We'll get you some food. And he said, well, I don't have any way. And I said, well, if you find a way, come on in. Be here before 4:30. We'll help you out. I go about my business, and I feel kind of bad about it. And I drive home, and I pick up this amazing, smart young man. I won't mention any names, but I pick up my son Jake, and I drive him back. And on the way, he says to me, he says, Dad, how was your day? And I start telling him, I just kind of unloaded, talking about this guy and how he needed food, and how I really didn't have time because I'm racing around, and we're pretty much driving right past this old man right there and then. Saying, we don't have time. A couple of seconds go by, and Jake says, Dad, I'm not going to call you when I need help. And I'm like, what? He's like, you probably wouldn't have time to help me, so I'll just call one of my friends. I got to church that night, and I raced around, and I did everything, and I got a food box together. And after church, Jake and I drove over there. We saw this old guy, and we took him a box of food. Time. Abundance of time. Sharing our time. How many times do we get running around in a day and we forget? As you're seeing somebody that you know, and we know their face. How are you doing? And they're like, great. You know they're not telling the truth. How are you doing? Okay. You know they're not telling the truth. You know that there's more there, but what are you thinking? You're thinking, glad they said okay, because now I can just move on about I'm fine. I just move you on about your business, right? You can walk right past them. How you doing? Okay, that's great. I'll see you later. It's good seeing you. And you walk past it. But if you stop, you see that. How many of us take that time to ask, how you doing? No, really. How are you doing? Because the eyes are the windows to the soul, right? You can see. And when that voice comes out saying they're fine, and you can hear in their heart that they're not, how many times do we take time? We need to be generous with our time. They had their whole lives to look forward to, but the end came so much sooner than anyone expected. Having been married, just been married in a brief ceremony 5 minutes earlier, Harley Morgan and Rhiannon Boudreaux were leaving the Orange County Justice of Peace when their car collided with a pickup truck towing a trailer. The pickup driver was unharmed, but Morgan and Boudreaux died at the scene. The groom's sister said everything happened so quickly she doubted whoever saw the truck coming. Morgan's mother was following behind the couple and witnessed the accident firsthand. She said the couple planned to have a larger Christmas-themed wedding celebration with friends and family in December. But even in the midst of the tragedy, she offered some advice that applies to all of us. The only thing that they wanted was to get married and to start their life. Even if you're mad, hug your family, love your family. Even if they've made you mad, make amends. Don't go to bed angry, because you don't know how fast you can lose a person. And the truth is, every day when we are walking through town, those acquaintances of ours that are hurting, that are troubled, we need to be generous with our time and realize, you know what, getting home to watch that football game ain't going to be as important as somebody's emotional well-being. Getting home to get to bed early on time isn't as important as loving on somebody who needs it. Because the truth of the matter is, and I've said it 100 times, but I'll say it again, we don't know what kind of battles people are facing. Amen? We don't know what's going on behind their eyes. Maybe they've been up all night with a crying baby. Maybe they've been up all night with a fight with their spouse. We don't know. Let's take the time. Let's be generous. Energy. Being available with our energy and our emotions. Taking that time. So let's say maybe when you're there and you're in that opportunity, you take time to give of your emotions. How many of you know that it is emotionally draining, right, when you do that? Giving energy in that way, you can definitely tell. It takes a toll out of you, doesn't it? When you stop and you share, you invest in people that way. I think of the parable of the Good Samaritan, which we've discussed several times in this series, but it really captures the point. That man who's been beaten and stripped naked, laying on the side of the road with wounds from his injuries as he's been robbed by robbers, and the religious people come by and they don't stop. The pastor walks on the other side of the road, he don't stop. The worship leader walks by, they don't stop. But that dirty scoundrel of a guy, the Samaritan, he comes by, the used car salesman, the guy you think, whoever you think the worst of, your brother-in-law that, comes over on Thanksgiving and eats your KFC biscuits, that guy, whoever that is, he takes the time and invests energy into taking care of that wounded person. Some of you know I get to take care of people who are on hospice. Hospice is the care for people who have 6 months or less usually to live. And I get to go into these places and visit with people, and some of them are fairly healthy, but maybe they are struggling with Alzheimer's, and they're having a hard time seeing or remembering. I went into this place not long ago, and I sat with a little lady, and I sang her a song. And as I sang to her, she just cried. And I thought, I'm not going to do that anymore. She's just crying her eyes out. I'm not going to sing to her anymore. And her husband came in. And I just spent time. And he was one of those guys, have you ever been in a conversation when you're talking and they're not doing nothing. So you're thinking, this is about the flattest, deadest conversation I have ever been in. Maybe you've been on dates like that. I hope not, in Jesus' name. There I am, and I'm sitting there with this guy, and I'm trying to just pour my energy forth, and I'm thinking, this is dead and going nowhere. I'm talking to him, I'm trying to tell this story about his wife, and I share that when I sang to her, I'm coming up with anything to talk about, right, Thane? I mean, I'm coming up with anything to share with him, so I tell on myself a little bit and tell how I made her cry, singing to her, on a hill far away, stood an old mother. And I tell him that story, and guess what he does? He starts to cry. I had no idea that his little bride, the lady that he said was the love of his life, had showed no emotion for years. She had been so trapped in her diminished capacity that she hadn't even conveyed any emotion to her husband. And so as not wanting to, because he wasn't paying attention, and not wanting to pour that energy forth, not wanting to give anymore, because it wasn't going anywhere. That's what I thought. And yet, he responded in a powerful way. And he actually told a friend that if he ever went to church, he'd like to attend my church. She just appreciated me that much. We don't know the impact that we have when we take time to be generous with our emotions, do we? Think back to those situations through life when you have taken the time. Our friend Jean Collier, who walked along the canal bank, and she would walk that route frequently, just trying to stay in shape. And the one day she walks with some lady, and the Lord's telling her, walk up, catch up to that lady up there, walk up and catch up to her, start talking with her. And she does, and she strikes up a conversation, and she and this lady become acquaintances, and they start walking together, and this repeats over weeks and months. I don't know how long the friendship lasted, but the lady finally confided in Jean and said, that very first night, when you walked up to me and you started talking to me, she said, I had resolved that day to go home and take my own life. I had told God that if something didn't change, I was going to end it. Think of this. So just that simple act of sharing your energy, taking the time and being generous in that way, changed her life. And when you think of that family around her, we're not islands, none of us. None of us are going to only affect ourselves. We affect everyone around us that has known or knows us. Think of that ripple effect. If that woman had done that, if she had murdered herself, she would have carried over to friends, acquaintances. We don't know who looks forward to seeing us at the post-op. We don't know who looks forward to, we don't know who we have brightened the day with, or who thinks maybe I'd like to get to know that person. We don't know. Be generous with your energy. Before I talk to you about resources, I want to frame your perspective a little bit more. And to do that, I got to kind of look through my notes and remember where I put something. I was in a restaurant recently, and the staff had black shirts on, like black polo shirts with their names, like the company's name up here. And I went in wearing a sweatshirt with like a hoodie, but it was black. And so I went to get in line to eat at the buffet, right? And there was this little old guy there that I had met a few moments ago. And so I greeted him and I said, hello, how are you doing? And he says, well, I'm doing great. He says, I'll take a Coke. I was like, okay. And I didn't want to embarrass him and say, oh, I'm not a wait staff. You know, I wanted to respect my elders and be kind of nice. And so I went up to front and I asked them for a Coke. He says, all I got is a Pepsi and it's $3. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I paid $3 for this